The content, views, and opinions expressed in the following program are those of the producer and do not necessarily reflect the views and opinions of the City of Bremerton, BCAT, their officials, or their employees. They say that in every great story, two roles are always cast, the hero and the villain. But here in the real world, especially during an election season, these roles aren't always so easy to define. Welcome to another thoughtful afternoon here in Washington State. Today we are sitting down with a candidate whose journey has sparked questions, conversation, and yes, even a little controversy. Our guest is the founder of Gather Together, Grow Together, a former educator at Olympic College, a past commissioner of the Bremerton Housing Authority, and a current board member of the Kitsap Regional Library. He also hosts The Conduit, a podcast dedicated to dialogue around housing, equity, and civic engagement. Recently, he ran for Bremerton City Council in the year 2023 and is now running for mayor. Today's episode isn't an endorsement. It's about an exploration of what it means to run for an office when you're not necessarily always backed by the system, but still driven by service. Some viewers may be meeting this candidate for the first time, and others may even be asking why he's here. And that's exactly why we invited him. Because if this platform, Afternoons with Ash, stands for anything, it's the belief that public dialogue matters, especially when it's uncomfortable. So let's talk about the process, the path, and the possibilities. Today, please welcome mayoral candidate for the City of Bremerton, Mr. Marwan Cameron. Marwan, thank you so much for being here today.
I appreciate you having me.
So, I've heard a lot about you over the years, and we've just recently met. Obviously, I've been doing a series of episodes that cover all of the candidates for mayor and kind of, what they've been going through in their process, who they are as individuals, and really just trying to cast a spotlight on, how good people tend to run for office. Give everybody a fair chance to be known, and so I'm really pleased to have you here today, and to give viewers a chance to know who you are. So, in your own words, tell us who Marwan Cameron, the Enigma, is.
The Enigma.
Yes.
Wow. All right. Well, that would probably take the entire episode just trying to say who I am. When I think about that question, I can answer it in a lot of different ways.
Yeah.
But first and foremost, I see myself as a parent. I have a 13-year-old that just graduated from Ridgetop Junior High, and she's getting ready to go to Bremerton High, so I'm tremendously proud of Layla. But I'm a resident. I live here. I've been living here since 1997. I've had a life that has brought me to this point, being born into homelessness in Buffalo, New York, in the 70s. In January, and so you can imagine what that might be like with the snow out there, and it just wasn't the thing back then to be a mother bringing a child into the world unmarried, and so my grandparents weren't having any of it. So I was born into homelessness, went into foster care until I was 5, was adopted at 5, and went back into foster care at 15, and at 17 I was living at the YMCA in Seattle, and just wondered why I was here, and I just kind of ran away from there and kind of just emancipated myself and just kind of started my life. And so that really kind of has formed who I am. My father, who adopted 17 of us, was a Baptist minister. Reverend Marwan Cameron was the principal of Arm and Jar way back when. And so he instilled some things into us, God, education, and children. And so even though I only spent 10 years with him, those things stuck with me. I was a brick mason. I actually built the Safeway and the Walmart that are on McWilliams. I didn't even know what Bremerton was way back then. But I fell off the scaffold, and I have degenerate disc and joint disease, and had to reinvent myself, and that's what got me into going to school. Only had a 9th grade education and a GED 2 days after I turned 16, and now I have a master's degree from Old Dominion and taught at OC as you mentioned. I've worked for the Navy as a contractor for the Navy College Office and Fleet and Family during COVID. And so I've worked in almost every sector you can think of. here to the service of this city and this county, and being here and saying, you know what, I can complain about things, I could say how things should be done, or I could try to do those things and try to fix those myself with the people that want to come alongside and do that. And that's really who I am, is, you know, I want to get things done. We can complain about things and talk about how things could be better, but you have to have the temerity and the gall to want to actually change it. And I believe that that's who I am, and I try to change things and make things better. There was a time where I used to build buildings, and now I feel like I build people and try to change systems.
Now you're helping to build back in your city.
That's it.
You know, it's really crazy to hear that you had that experience in Buffalo. A lot of people don't know this, but there was once upon a time where a young Ash Black was a poor kid living in a trailer in Buffalo, New York.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so, I mean, it was a different time. I can't imagine, you know, what it looked like in the 70s.
Mm-hmm.
But
are you a Bills fan?
You know, I'm not going to comment on, you know, football. I tend to believe there's only one team in the world. I see a lot of different variations of their gear everywhere, especially around here. Mm-hmm. Tends to say something to the degree of Seahawks on that. But those are the finest Dallas Cowboys shirts I've ever seen.
Oh, I hate the Cowboys.
In my life.
Wow.
So, you know, you've had a long career, and in the past, you've spoken a lot about homelessness. Mm-hmm. In particular, I find that when I read about you online, that is a common theme that comes up, and foster care as well. So I was curious how those experiences shaped your path towards service and advocacy and where you're at today.
Whew, I mean, you know, again, experiencing it, right? Lived experience is a big component of who I am today and why I do the things that I do and how I move. Again, having that experience, going through it myself, watching people primarily at the college, watching people bathe in the bathroom, coming in and not having food, not being able to get to school because they didn't have adequate transportation. Those things really had a big impact on me. And those are things that I struggled even in my 20s, being a construction worker, going to different job sites and not having the adequate transportation and things of that nature. And so wanting to address those things and provide the services that weren't available to me. Not only were they not available, but I also didn't necessarily have the mindset to engage in those resources, even if they were there, right? And so I wanted to offer those resources to folks and cut through the red tape and not be we see ourselves as the dinghy, right? We're not the Titanic. So it means that we can move and we can pivot and we can do different things that bigger organizations cannot, and we can fill in the gaps. And so that's really a big thing for me.
In your opinion, do you think that we can, you know, bridge the poverty gap and the barrier that it creates to success in people's lives?
Absolutely. If we have the desire, there's nothing that we can't do. We are the richest nation in the history of mankind. And when you watch things like COVID or other natural disasters or emergencies, when folks come together, there's nothing that we can't do, and we can do it quickly. And so some of that is kind of moving capitalism to the side and saying that we're going to put people first. And we're going to train our folks up. So people need opportunity, people need housing, and we need to think different ways to do it, not be afraid to try different things, like measure twice and cut once, but don't be afraid. One of the things that frustrate me is we're uniquely situated on this peninsula, and unfortunately, we tend to look out and see what other cities and states have done, and then we want to try to integrate that instead of being innovative and saying, hey, we're here, let's look at what resources we have, which of course is first and foremost is our people, and then let's go ahead and leverage that and solve these issues. I think we can do it in less than a year if we really had the desire to do so.
Well said. You've built organizations, gather together, grow together. You've taught in classrooms. Mm-hmm. You've served on civic boards. What connects all that to your decision to keep fighting for Bremerton?
What connects that to make me want to continue to fight for Bremerton? That's an interesting question. For me, I just wanted to make a difference in the way that I could, right? Oftentimes, you find that if you're not the cool kid or if you don't know someone, you're not invited to be a decision maker or to try out ideas or to implement things that you want to try.
Yeah.
And so it's like, okay, well, if I can't do it over here, I'll just do it myself, which is kind of how these things how G2 was born and some of the other programs that I've created were born. And then also needing to know how things work. So you can say, well, Salvation Army isn't doing a good job, which I am on the board for Sally's as well. But unless you know and you get on the inside and you see how they operate, you're not going to know what their actual limitations are.
Yeah.
And so you could look at it from the outside saying, well, they're not doing a good job, they should be doing this, they should be doing that. And you don't understand, well, it could be grant money or how they're funded or their physical limitations. And once you understand that, then you're better able to make those decisions on finding ways to find solutions.
So, one of the things that I wanted to talk to you about is, the political machine, if you will. When you ran in 2023, I felt like your campaign didn't come with a lot of the usual endorsements or institutional backing that maybe other candidates had. And I find this is common with folks across the spectrum when running for office. And I was curious what it felt like for you to run without that machine backing you. A lot of our offices, of course, are nonpartisan, but I feel like sometimes maybe people get left out of the conversation, or even at times people's opinions are, left out purposefully of the conversation. And I was curious how you felt about that and what that experience is like for you.
Well, it's interesting. For me, it was a thing of ignorance. I had no idea. I wasn't in the political sphere, so I've never helped on a campaign.
Yeah.
So I had no idea how to run a campaign, what to do. When I decided to do it, I didn't have a campaign manager. Folks were telling me, you need a campaign manager.
Yeah.
So really, just trying to figure it out was my experience, right? And with that, I lost by 52 votes.
Yeah.
Right? So, and I tore my meniscus, so I couldn't door knock and things like that. I think I could have won if I had done a few things differently.
Yeah.
However, it also put me in this place today. So very powerful. As far as, there's a good old boys network for sure, but there's a good old network, fill in the blank, wherever it is, whatever side it's on. And in that, as far as endorsements, in my community, especially in the Black community, what I hear a lot of times is, we're not sure if we can endorse because, and it's just lack of knowledge, right? There's a conflict, and so we have to, I support you, but I can't say it openly that I support you. And so I got a lot of that. But what I've learned and what I've taken from it this time is looking at the presidential election and just how the billions of dollars that were spent. The fact that, Bremertonians are struggling and suffering right now. I don't want endorsements and I don't want money. I just want votes, right? And what's big about that to me is you look at the endorsements, whether it's the fire department or the police or this agency or this big wig or whoever it may be, right? And folks put so much value on that. But if it's truly we the people, then Bob, Jane, that vote is just as important as the judge or the lawyer or the whoever, right? So I'm more about we the people. And so on my website, we're not even putting any endorsements. I'm not asking for endorsements. I'm just asking for votes.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's interesting, the whole political machine, if you will, seems to be rather cannibalistic towards their candidates sometimes. And, while exploring this subject on afternoons, it's been really interesting to see and experience what each candidate goes through. And I've asked the other candidates, similar questions about, how it must feel when you try to do something really good and then you go online and you see all these negative opinions that are coming out of, the woodwork from every which way. And, I guess I've learned that it's really important to not, value yourself based on what you see online. But that's been the whole experience here on Afternoons, is to try to give every citizen an opportunity to see our candidates as people and make educated decisions on the work that each one of you do, and each one of the candidates in this year's mayoral race are awesome. You guys are all working very hard for our city, and so when I hear things in back rooms, or when I read things that seem negative towards one or the other candidates, it's really hard for me to comprehend when I see so much good work here, And I'll say, and this is on my own team, not my Afternoons with Ash team, I've had people say, well, maybe you should wait. But why would I wait? There's a time, where these episodes should go out, and for fairness, we've got to get them out. So, I thought that was interesting, and that kind of led me to some of the questions that we had today. Was like, well, why would anybody ask you to withhold information? Just the truth. And so I felt like maybe you'd had some experience with that in your life, and like I said, you've just got this wonderful history, and I appreciate everything that you've done for the city and continue to do.
I appreciate that.
Some have questioned whether you, like I mentioned, whether certain individuals should even be invited to sit here in this seat. What do you say about how political narratives can shape a person's trajectory, or even about the type of people who shape those narratives?
So there are definitely kingmakers or queen makers, right? And that's on both sides. We're talking about being nonpartisan, but there are camps and there are groups that folks go to get endorsements, or what is it called when it's not an endorsement? Approval.
Yeah.
Right? But with that, it's not really important to me to worry about that. Ask me the question again, because I lost my thought.
I'm just kind of curious how you feel about how political narratives are shaped, and the individuals that shape those narratives.
So the people that shape those narratives, right? And what I was saying about the kingmakers and the queenmakers, we have to get past that, and we need new ideas. We need new blood, so to speak. And in order to get that, we're going to have to go in a different direction. We keep banging on the same doors, asking for approval, or trying to fit in this perfect box, nonpartisan, left, right, whatever you want to call it, right? And only a few get to go on that path.
Yeah.
However, this is supposed to be a democracy. This is supposed to be for everyone, right? All ideas are supposed to be welcome, and let the best person who the people think is best, let them be elected and make their change, and if they don't do a good job, elect someone else. So I think it's important, and one of the main reasons why I ran for city council was to show how the process is, because I didn't know anything about it.
Yeah.
So for all the things that you say that I've done, I knew nothing about politics at all.
Yeah.
So it's a mystery. And so many times people don't know how to start businesses. They don't know how to run for office. They don't know how to do all these really important things, how to buy a home. Someone has to demystify that and bring some clarity to that. And if that means that that's me, and that is the lesson that is given from it, that someone else who never thought to run now has the temerity and like, you know what, I can do this. I don't have to be, this perfect vessel on paper and everyone has to love me, or the people that make the decisions to raise those folks up. I can do it. Do it. You live here. You're impacted by what happens. You should have a say. You have ideas. So if you feel like you can make a difference, then you should run. That's what's so important.
I do think that the path is somewhat askew, and if the information was more readily available, I mean, it's like they say with parenting. I wish that someone had written a guidebook.
Well, it is, but we were joking about, podcasting and, using technology. But even still, it's hard. You need a technical writer to tell you how to use the things in layman's terms, right? So even though that information is there's stuff on the website, you still don't have a really good idea.
Yeah.
And so, I try to document as much as I can and be as vulnerable and as clear as I can for other people to see it and encourage others to do the same.
Let me ask you one final question today, so we can wrap up and give you a fair chance to close out here. I was curious, when people are watching this, what do you want them to know about what you represent?
I represent every single Bremertonian, right? Whether you're coming from homelessness, whether you're a homeowner, whether you're a renter, whether you're a business owner, I really am here for everyone. And I think there is a way for everyone to be served and everyone to have their voices heard. That's really what I want people to take away. I'm an average person, right? And the only thing that makes me different than maybe someone else is, again, I just had the audacity to say, you know what, I'm gonna try to do something.
Yeah.
I wanna try to use some of my time to make a difference. I'm gonna use my voice. I have started a men's group, and some of those men are in their 50s, and they haven't spoken in public. They didn't feel like they had the right to speak in public, or that anyone would take their opinions seriously. That's sad, right? Everyone should be able to have their voice heard and be able to bring their ideas. We need new ideas, and we need to try something different. And that's what I believe that I represent, is not tried and true. And there's a place for tradition and customs and how we do things, but there's also a space that has to be when we're looking at homelessness, we're looking at drug addiction, we're looking at unaffordable housing, we're looking at transportation issues, we're looking at the lack of access to health care, we're looking at all these things. There has to be another way. So we cannot keep doing the same thing, or as we're moving forward doing the same thing, making marginal gains. We need to make some big swings.
Thank you. Thank you for being here today.
I appreciate you. Thank you.
Here on Afternoons with Ash, we don't pretend to have all the answers. But we've always committed to asking questions, especially ones that get left out of the conversation. Today's conversation wasn't about choosing sides. It was about opening space for a voice that, like many others, exists outside traditional circles of influence. In every election, stories form before ballots are cast. And whether you agree with them or not, those stories do deserve the light of public discourse. If this episode served any purpose, I wanted to remind us all that true democracy requires discomfort, not just passion, but perspective, not silence, but scrutiny. We don't build stronger communities by closing doors. We build them by holding them open just long enough to listen. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for watching, and thank you again to our guest, Mr. Marwan Cameron. As always, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. You can catch our episodes right here on BCAT and in print through the Kitsap Smokestack and many of our local retailers across Kitsap County. You're watching Afternoons with Ash Black, only on BCAT. You can find all of our episodes on our YouTube channel and catch the live broadcasts on BCAT, as well as all the extras at Afternoons with Ash Black on Facebook.